Welcome to the On Assignment podcast, brought to you by Mobilize Man, where our mission is to train and mobilize men as kingdom assets. This week, we have a special travel edition. My wife and I have been traveling to visit family, and I am excited to say that this week's special guest is my son, Austin Harvey. Austin, how you doing?
Oh, I'm happy to be here.
Good, good. Yeah, well, I'm excited to have you on the show. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while, and it worked out well. We've got your kids kind of down for naps and the ladies are out. And so we're kind of trying to catch a window of time here to be able to record this.
A busy household, it's a blessing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, good. Well, Austin is, how old are you, son?
25.
25. And I knew that. I'm just asking you to engage in conversation. So Austin's 25. He's been married for 3 years now to his beautiful wife, and they have 2 children. They have their son, Jed, and a brand new baby girl. And so we were happy enough to come and be able to meet her for the first time and hang out with the family for the weekend. And so it's been a great time.
It's been a really good time.
Yeah.
It's awesome having family in town.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so today, what we really want to do is encourage men out there to be able to understand that life is full of challenges.
Yeah.
And that as men on assignment, we take on responsibilities. And in those responsibilities that we are given by God and that we take on, there will be challenges. Whether that's a family responsibility, whether that's a ministry responsibility, a work responsibility, whatever it is, we take on all these different roles and assignments in our life. And things can get tough. Things can get difficult. And the Bible is very clear in encouraging us to the fact that just because we give our lives to Christ and we trust Him for our salvation, and we are adopted as sons by God the Father, and we're given the Holy Spirit and the Word of God, that all of those things are there for us to help us through the challenges of fulfilling God's purpose and plan for our lives, and to connect us with God, so that we need that connection with God because life is hard and we need Him. And we don't just look at God as a crutch. That's not the point here, but the point is that when we're going through challenges, that our connection with God is what's going to sustain us through the challenge. And the Bible is very clear when it says in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, it says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good. For in due season we will reap if we do not give up." And so there's this element of we will reap if we do not give up. And the Holy Spirit is encouraging us through the writer of Galatians, who was Paul, and he's saying, hey, don't give up. There is a reward on the other side of your effort. There is a reward there that I have for you, and you just got to keep going. Don't give up. And then again, we read in James chapter 1, verse 12, it says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love Him." So it says, blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. And so being steadfast, remaining steadfast under trial, the Bible is very clear that we will face trouble and we will face tribulations, the Bible calls them, challenges, these difficult things that life presents to us. And it can come out of nowhere. Sometimes it's just the way that the world operates, and we live in a broken and corrupt world, and life is hard because of that. Other times it's perhaps the consequence of our own bad decisions, our own sin, and those create the trials that we're going through. But regardless, we are to be men who are able to persevere and endure and do not give up and continue going to the end, so that we can reap the reward of living for Jesus. And so that's what we want to talk a little bit about today. And Austin, as young as you are, you still have some experience in this area. And I really want to kind of highlight that part of your story today when it comes to the ability to stick with something even when it's really difficult. And so we're going to talk a little bit about just a part of your military background, and that is the process of you joining the military and then fulfilling the contract that you signed up for with the Army. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that and how some of the challenges were and how you got through those challenges.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, how long ago did you sign up to go into the Army?
5 years ago.
Okay,
Pretty
and
much, almost to the day. So
isn't that
just about
crazy?
5 years.
Yeah, that's amazing, isn't it? I remember that time really, really clearly. And so, tell us a little bit about what that was like, the actual signing up and getting ready to go into the Army.
Yeah. So about a year before I actually signed, God really put it in my heart to just the military in general. I was listening to different podcasts. I was also trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. I was 19, about to be 20. I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And God put it in my heart after listening to a podcast, actually, just of these different stories of these men who had been in the military. And God really put it in my heart, like, just planted the seed of joining the military. So then I started doing some research. I was always watching YouTube videos on all these different branches. I looked at the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Army. I looked at all the different options, laid it all out, and I decided that the Army was what I wanted to do because they had the most diversified options.
Okay.
So you can be infantry, you can be in Ranger battalions, there's Special Forces, Green Berets, and that was kind of what I was looking at doing. So I did more research. I was living in Los Angeles at the time. I moved back home to Oregon to start working construction again, which was a good time. And while I was working construction, I started talking to some recruiters and basically laid down like, hey, this is what I want. I want either a Ranger contract or a Special Forces contract. So give me a call. Like I'll take a PT test. Give me a call if those open up. And then I want to say 2 or 3 weeks after I filled out all the paperwork that you have to do, my recruiter gave me a call at like 5 in the morning, something like that, 5:30.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting ready to go to the job site. It was early in the morning, and he was like, hey, 2 of these contracts just popped up nationwide for the 18 X-ray, which is the Special Forces contract for anyone who doesn't know. And he's like, do you want it? Like, I'll reserve it for you. And I was like, yeah, like I want it for sure. Like, sign me up for that. So that kind of started the whole process. And then after a couple months, it takes a couple months. You have to do like go to MEPS, which is like your military and processing and all that. And you have to sign the paperwork. You have to take these different tests to make sure that you're actually smart enough to do the job that you're signing up for. And then after that, we shipped off to Fort Benning.
Wow. So you're going from having lived away from home for a little bit. So you had some independence there. Yeah. And then you came back and you were framing with our company, which I loved having you home, and I loved having you working with us. And you were a really solid framer and a carpenter, and the crews loved having you on their team. And so, yeah, I remember walking with you through that process a little bit. But what was that like for you, showing up at Fort Benning? And you've seen some YouTube videos, but this is for real now. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was definitely a big change. I remember we were at the airport, the Portland airport, and I met up with like a group of guys who were also going off to Fort Benning. There was probably like 6 or 7 of us, if I remember correctly. And we were all just like super excited. We were so loud at the airport. It's like, oh man, we're going to see a drill sergeant for the first time. They're going to make us do so many push-ups, like all that stuff. And
right.
we were all kind of hyping ourselves up for the nervousness.
Yeah.
Nervous excitement. We were just trying to get ready for something that you don't necessarily want to do.
Right.
So that was a good time. And then we actually got to Fort Benning, and it was like, oh wow, this is a total like life change. One, the climate there was way different than what I was used to. It was July in the South in Georgia,
right.
and I was like, oh my gosh, this humidity thing is crazy.
Yeah.
And also just the routine of like waking up at 4 and then you have to stand in formation. You're just like pretty much just standing there like all day.
Yeah.
You're just standing, and then you're just kind of like learning how really the military works and seeing drill instructors or drill sergeants walking around, and you're like, okay, like I just got to stay in line, you know, stuff like that. And then also like meshing with all the guys who are there because you're staying in a big bay with like 50 or 60 different guys.
Yeah.
So just kind of meshing with everyone, and then dealing with just being bored.
Right.
Like it's just, there's a lot of boring, you're just like hurry up and wait kind of deal.
Yeah.
You don't have your cell phone. So like you're just pretty much bored all day just standing there.
Wow.
And typically you were there for at this place called 30th AG. It's in processing. Typically, you're there for like 2 weeks, but because of COVID, I was there for 2 months. And then it was a weird time.
Yeah.
Because it was like wearing a mask all the time, but then like some drill instructors or drill sergeants didn't really care. They're like, you don't need to wear that. And then other ones would yell at you if you weren't wearing it. So it was just like a weird deal. And then since we were staying in these big open bays, you had bunk beds. So if your bunkmate tested positive for COVID, which they tested us like twice in those 2 months, then and you tested negative, for example, then they'd send you off to this camp where they had like a positive side and a negative side for COVID. So it ended up being that I was about to ship off to basic training, and then my bunkmate tested positive for COVID, as they wanted to test us one more time before we actually went. So my bunkmate tested positive. I tested negative. So they send us off to this camp, and I'm there for 2 extra weeks, and I'm all bummed out. I'm like, man, like all my buddies, they're going off to basic.
Yeah.
I'm here now. They're ahead of the game now, and I'm just stuck here. And at the end of the 2 weeks of quarantine at that camp, they have to test you again because you're in like a barracks room, but you have your own separate room.
Okay.
So it's like you share like a bathroom and like a kitchen, and then there's 2 separate rooms.
Yeah.
And then they test you again, and my roommate tested positive, and I tested negative again. So I had to be there for 2 more weeks. And so that was a struggle because I felt like I was behind the game.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get the ball rolling. I was just you show up somewhere. You're all excited to get started, and then it was like a 3-month setback.
Yeah, totally.
Like, man, like this is crazy.
Yeah, yeah, and you're isolated. Things don't make sense because we have a shared space, but we have our separate rooms. This guy just tested positive. I tested negative. They've got me in here.
Yeah,
with a guy who's positive for COVID. It made no sense, and so you're trying to process all of that. And really also probably just like, God, what did I do? Did I make the right decision? Did you ever question the decision you made during that time?
I definitely did. I remember, I think I wrote it in, I was writing like a journal, like just to kind of pass the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember writing in one of my journal logs after I found out I had to stay for 2 more weeks at that little camp area.
Yeah.
I was like, man, like God, like what am I doing? Like I've made a terrible mistake. Like I was like, I signed up for 5 years.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh wow. And it's been 3 months and I'm just like, I'm already over it.
Right.
I was just like, I don't know what I have to do just to go to basic training. That's all I wanted to do.
Right.
I just wanted to get the ball rolling.
Wow.
Like, that's all.
Yeah.
When you have that excitement for something,
totally.
You have all these expectations, and then your expectations don't necessarily get met right away, and it's just sometimes it could be tough to deal with.
Yeah, yep. I can't imagine. And so the day finally comes when you're getting shipped to basic training. Well, you're not really shipped anywhere because it's at the same Fort Benning, right? And so you get to start basic training. How was basic training for you?
Oh, basic training was a good time. It's long for the infantry side. It was 6 months in total. So you do like your basic training, and then you go straight into infantry training.
Okay.
With the same group of guys. You don't have to move anywhere.
Yeah.
So it was a really good time. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part was just the length of it. It's just being 6 months of just that controlled environment was like the toughest part.
Yeah.
For sure. But I thought I had a great time. I met some had some good buddies, got in good shape.
Yeah.
Just really, really prepped me for the rest of the training I had to do that was ahead of me after that.
Right. Yeah. So to stick with that for 6 months was you said that was probably the biggest part, was just how long. The biggest challenge was just the length of it.
Yeah.
And so you kind of had to keep focused. And what were some of the things that you did to keep yourself on track during that time? Because I know that I hear stories about guys really getting off track during basic, and they kind of mess things up to where it impacts their future with the military.
Yeah, I would say when you have like the downtime, because after a certain amount of times we got more privileges. So it's like, okay, after the first 3 weeks, you can go use the pull-up bars down there. And after like the first maybe like
wait, so your reward for doing good for 3 weeks is getting to go use a pull-up bar?
Yeah.
Total military.
Yeah, I was like, you guys get to go use that pull-up bar now.
Yeah, that's great. Woohoo.
So I would say just doing things like that.
Yeah.
Like after hours, because you're not working all day.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be working like all day every day for 6 months.
Yeah.
So you do what you have to do that day, then you have like pretty much the evening and night to yourself, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I would say just kind of keeping focused by I would just go down there and work out. And even with a group of guys, we
Yeah.
go down there like who have the same mindset, because not everyone has the same mindset
Yeah.
as you.
Right.
If you're really trying to get after it, some people are there. Everyone's there for kind of a different reason.
Mm-hmm.
But so I found like a good solid group of guys that like wanted to get after it. So
Yeah.
we'd go hang out and we'd go work out together, and that would kind of clear your mind.
Yeah.
I read a lot of books, actually. I think I read like 10 books over those 6 months.
Yeah.
Just like different stories
Yeah.
about like military. It was mainly military, like
Sure.
biographies and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So that really kept me sane at night too.
Yeah.
And we would play cards and just kind of just like you meet your core group of friends and you just kind of stick with
Yeah.
them, and you kind of just have some chats with them at night and just kind of get your mind off like home or whatever you're
Yeah.
missing.
Yeah. Well, I remember your graduation from basic training. We were not able to visit you because of COVID. We had to watch it live streamed on TV, and I just remember like whoever was running your live stream camera was like had the camera upside down for a while. It was the most funniest thing. I'm like, this is our United States military at work.
Yeah.
The guy's got the camera upside down, and we're watching. From we're up in the Northwest, you're down at Fort Benning, but we watched the graduation on live stream, and then we're like, which one's Austin? They all have masks, and so we couldn't even see. But there was no way we were missing that graduation, and so once you graduated from basic, what was next for you then?
So with the contract I got, 18 X-ray, you go from infantry training or basic infantry training, and then you go straight to airborne school, which is also on Fort Benning.
Yeah.
So you basically hop on a bus and you get sent off to airborne school, which is like a 10-minute drive.
Okay.
From where we were staying at.
Yeah.
Basic. And once we got there, they basically just gave us our barracks. We in-processed real quick. It took like 10 minutes. They were already tracking that we were coming. And then we were in the barracks, and it felt like free. We're like, we have our cell phones.
Yeah.
We can have snacks here. We can work out. Like we can go use those pull-up bars whenever we want.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So that was actually a good change.
Yeah. Yeah. And the mindset is just completely different of the guys you're there with, I'm sure too. Like you said, how were your nerves?
I was more excited than I was nervous, because I was like, this is the next step.
Yeah.
It was more like this wanting to get to the it was like wanting to get to selection.
Yeah.
I know I have to do this to get there, and this is my next step.
Yeah.
And it felt cool, because that airborne school has a cool history.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it felt like an honor to be at airborne school.
Yeah.
But the nerves were high. I mean, for like jumping, at the end you're gonna have to jump 5 times out of an airplane, so that was nerve wracking. And you're also around other people in the Army for the first time.
Yeah.
As like a private.
Right.
So you're kind of figuring that out. And as like a young guy, I think in any workforce, whatever you're doing, I think it's good to, kind of listen to the older guys and, not have an ego.
Yeah.
And just kind of be like, okay, like this older guy is more experienced than me. And, I'm gonna listen to what he says for the most part, unless he's saying some real dumb stuff.
Yeah.
But like just being respectful and just kind of figuring out how to toe that line.
Yeah.
Being respectful, but also like having confidence in yourself.
Yeah.
So I thought that was good. So airborne school taught me some things about that, and also managing fear.
Yeah.
Like when you're about to jump out, it can be nerve wracking for sure.
Yeah.
But once again, it helps having the right guys around you.
Yeah.
Because it's like, okay, well, I got my buddy to my left and my right, and he's gonna jump out before me. He's gonna jump out after me. So I'm gonna watch my buddy jump out, and I'm gonna jump out.
Yeah.
And then my buddy's behind me. He's gonna jump out right behind me.
Yeah.
So having those guys around you, having the right people surrounded with you, surround yourself with good people. There we go.
Wow. And so you got your 5 jumps done.
Yeah.
And then you got your, what do they call it? You got your wings, right?
Wings.
You got your airborne wings, which is amazing.
That was cool. That was a good day.
Yeah. And so at that point, then you have more of a different path than your path continues on as an 18 X-ray, right?
Yes.
So what's next in that path?
So right after that, they loaded up all the other 18 X-rays on a bus, and we drove to Fort Bragg.
Okay.
It was like a 10 or 11 hour drive, and we drove there. And once we got there, there was probably 20 or 30 of us. Once we got there, we started in processing. Like we got our barracks room. at Fort Bragg, like our actual room where we're going to be staying for the duration of like the course for however long you stay in the
Yeah.
course, which was cool. Like you kind of have your own room and you're like, oh man, like this is my room. I can do whatever I want with it for the
Right.
most part.
Yeah.
And then you get into the section called awaiting training as you're awaiting to start the selection prep course. So there's a group of, when I showed up, there was like 400 or 500 of us
Okay.
in this awaiting training, and they can send 150 guys more or less to this prep course.
Okay.
So we were just kind of waiting for the slots to kind of fill up, and then the guys go to selection, and then we were waiting for our turn to go to the prep course.
Yeah. Okay. And so remind me again, all those guys that were waiting, they're not all 18 X-ray guys. There's guys who are 18 X-rays. There's guys who've been in the military for a while who are now trying to go through selection, that type of thing. Or are they all
everyone in that awaiting training was 18 X-rays.
Okay, so they were.
Everybody.
Wow. Okay, so you're all like kind of
We're all
green, nervous, like kind of full of energy, wanting to just prove yourself
Yeah.
and get after it. And so I'm sure the mindset shift was there even again, as far as like these guys are all dialed in, getting ready for maybe what could be one of the bigger challenges of their lives.
Yeah, I remember like just showing up to the first formation. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh man, like these guys are all studs.
Yeah.
Like we got Division I athletes. We got guys who are like CrossFit studs. Some guys who like help start the Spartan races, like and are competing those. And there's all sorts of kind of guys there.
Yeah.
And then everyone's talking about like their fitness routine, and you're like, holy cow, like this guy's running like 100 miles a week. And, like, you're like, oh my gosh, and it's easy to feel behind the curve.
Yeah.
Like I remember I felt like that for a little bit. I was like, man, like I thought I was in good shape, which I think I was at the time still, but I was like, man, but this guy's just like way better than me. Like
right.
These physical events that are tangible.
Yeah.
Like he's just way better than me. And so it was easy to kind of lose confidence like that. But then once you start the actual like PT together and you kind of build the camaraderie, it's like your confidence builds up because, you're like, okay, like I'm hanging with these guys. And, like we became like a good group.
Yeah.
At least the group that I went through the prep course with, we all became real close.
Yeah.
So that actually ended up really, really helping out because you're like, I got these good guys to my left and my right, and they're pushing me actually to be better. Like we're going for a run this morning, and it's like, okay, like I'm going to be in the top 10 this morning. Like, and everyone's just trying to push to be in the top 10 at the end or whatever event we were doing. You're always just pushing to be first.
Right.
And so with the guys who are better than you, it helps you grow a
Yeah.
lot more. So just surrounding yourself with people who are better than you really just elevates you. I found that.
Yeah.
Like it elevated me a ton.
Yeah.
I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, that's so good. And I really like what you're talking about there with the comparing piece too, because it's like so many times in life in general, that is the number one way to sabotage your movement forward is if you buy into the comparison trap. To compare and contrast yourself with someone else. It was that way for me in business. It was that way for me in just life in general. It's like, oh, so-and-so just bought a really sweet house and man, they're making so much more money than I am. Or, hey, they're so much a better speaker than I am. And man, there's no way I'll ever be as good of a communicator as they are or as good of a leader. There's all kinds of areas where we can compare with other people in. And if you're wanting to go the long haul in life and really be able to endure and to stick with something, you cannot buy into the comparing and contrasting game because everyone's in a process. Everyone's at a point in the journey where they are being challenged and we're all on the same page in that. Yeah. Sure, some of us might have better gifts or get better abilities in certain areas, but that doesn't mean that you can't fulfill everything that God put in front of you to fulfill because he's given you everything you need. And so that's really, really a good point, Austin.
That's kind of the place I went to. I was like, God called me to this. So we're all on an equal playing field here. Like I know we all have an equal chance of making it through. I was like, so I had the confidence. I was like, God called me in to this role.
Yeah.
So I was like, I know that I'm not here for no reason.
Yeah.
Or else I wouldn't have felt that call.
Yeah.
So that gave me confidence. I was like, I know that God has me here for a reason.
Yeah, that's amazing. That faith piece that just really does move us forward. Yeah. I love it. So you're waiting to get into the prep course.
Yes.
And so how was that once you started that part of the
The prep
training?
course is great. They have instructors. It's very professional. They teach you like everything you need to know to be successful.
Okay.
And the PT program is great. You're working out twice a day. You're eating good food at the cafeteria that's like right up the road.
Yeah.
Like they'll make you omelets, whatever you want. Like it's actually good, healthy food.
Yeah.
And they teach you all this, like I said, all the skills you need to be successful. And it's really just up to you at that point because you have all the tools in your toolbox.
Wow.
So that was about 6 weeks of that prep course.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then they just get you ready physically. Pretty
Okay.
much. Mainly it's just all physical. And
Yeah.
they teach you some things.
Right. Wow. And then, so the day comes and it's like, okay, your number's called and it's time for you to go to selection. Now, selection is just the initial phase of the process for them to choose the men who are going to be able to have the opportunity to train to become a Green Beret.
Yes.
It's really, just because you get through selection doesn't mean you're guaranteed a Green Beret slot. It's just a matter of, it guarantees you a slot, but it doesn't guarantee you that you're going to graduate. So this is just the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long does selection last?
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Okay.
Yep.
And describe it a little bit.
Yeah, I'll never forget the day of like, you have all your gear. They give you a packing list. You have all your gear ready. You're at Fort Bragg and you load up the buses. And there's a bunch of new faces because anyone in the Army can go to selection.
Okay.
So you have your group of guys the 18 X-rays that you went with, so you all know them. But there's like a couple hundred guys in each class. So there's like 250 or something like guys that you don't know.
Right.
So, you're that peer evaluation. So you're already trying to get off on like the right foot with everybody.
Right.
Because, you're always being looked at by your peers as well. That goes into account.
Wow.
So I remember that. You're like, okay, like these are all new guys. Like I got to build rapport with these guys, and I just remember the bus ride being completely silent. Like everyone was just like getting mentally ready.
Yeah.
It's like that deal. And like I was talking about earlier, it's, you're getting ready mentally for something that you do not want to do.
Right.
Something that you have to do. I mean, you kind of want to do it. You're like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But it's not something it's not going to be an enjoyable experience.
Right.
So you kind of got to just really get mentally ready for that and prepared.
Yeah.
You know what's coming. But, once you get there, it's just like very physical. You have like your physical events, you have your land navigation, and then you have a team week, which is like the culminating thing where you're working with a team and doing hard tasks as a team to see if you are a team player or not, and if you're like willing to give up when it gets hard, and how you work with others. That's a very, very big deal.
Okay. Wow. And so how did you do during the first week, during the physical, that PT week?
Fine.
Yeah.
They're hard events, but it was fine. Like it wasn't anything new.
Okay.
It was like, okay, yep, the prep course, we did all this.
So you were prepared for that.
Yep.
And then second week is like land nav.
Yep.
And that's like day, night, really challenging, trying to learn how to find different coordinates in different conditions and in different topography. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And all by yourself.
Yeah.
By yourself out there.
All right. So are you working? So you're just by yourself. That's all individual land navigation.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And is there a lot of pressure on you during that week to find different points, or how does that work?
If you don't get like X amount of points, then you will not pass that week.
Okay. Yeah.
So you need a certain amount of points to pass that week.
Wow.
So you're really, really fighting and to get your points.
Okay.
So
yeah.
it's just.
Was there ever a point for you where you were like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to get the points I need, or were you pretty solid during that week?
I felt pretty solid during that week.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to get your points as quickly as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And hopefully get your first point by sunrise. That's how you know you're on a good track.
Okay.
So I got both of the test days. I got my first points on before sunrise.
Okay.
So that really ended up working.
Wow. Good.
So that builds confidence because that's kind of like the rule of thumb. You're like, okay, I just need my first point by the sunrise. So you get that, and it really sets you up for success for the rest of the day.
Wow. Okay. And then you move into team phase, and now the first 2 weeks, are you able to get sleep and are you eating, or are you being like?
You're eating MREs and you're sleeping when you can.
Okay. Yeah. So, but you're not. Are you in a bunk? Are you sleeping in a bunk, or are you?
The first week you're sleeping in a bunk.
Okay.
The next week you're sleeping in the woods.
Okay. All right. And so then you go into team week.
Yeah.
And that's where it's like, that's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Was that your hardest week? Do you feel like? Okay.
Yep. It's by design. Yep.
Okay.
It's the hardest week for sure.
Yeah.
Just the events that they put you under and the induced stress that they have. And
Yeah.
just working with the team and all of that, just kind of figuring out different personalities, which is good to know how to do.
Yeah.
In any asset of life or any facet of life.
Yeah.
So I thought, but by far it's definitely
Wow.
where most people want to quit. Like that's the only time I really was like, man, I want to quit right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was a couple of events where I was like, yeah, this is just terrible.
Was it because of just the physical depletion and you're just exhausted?
Just physical pain.
Yeah.
Just like physical pain.
Yeah.
Man, like because you know that at the end of the day it's going to be over, but you just know it's like, well, it's really early. Like it's going to be at least pain for like whatever 16 more hours today, and then the next day is going to be the same.
Yeah.
So you're like, man. So there's still like light at the end of the tunnel, but it's like, man, it's still like it felt like a long way off.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
wow.
So in those points, that third week, you're getting to that point where you're in a lot of physical pain, and you're feeling like quitting. What could you encourage our listeners with? It kind of maybe was there anything that comes to mind where it helped you from a mindset point of view to get through those times? Yeah. What was it that you did to get through that?
Yeah, so I know you guys have talked about it on a podcast before. It was like no plan B.
Yeah.
It was like, well, I don't have this is the only option for me. So I'm just going to stick with it. That was really helpful. Like, because if I had like a cush job that I could go back to or whatever, a good life, it would have been a lot easier to quit. But it was like, well, this is my only option, so I'm just going to stick with it. Like, I'm not going to be the one. I'm not going to be the reason why I failed this. It's going to be at the end, like when they call my number, like it's not going to be up to me. It's going to be up to the instructors.
Yeah.
And also having just good guys around you.
Yeah.
Like the buddies you went through the course with, you're like, oh, well, that's my good buddy over there, and he's looking like he's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Give him a little nod or like a little smile. And
yeah.
Like, oh, sweet. Okay, he's good to go. I'm good to go. It gives you a boost.
Yeah.
So surrounding yourself with those people with the same mindset.
Yeah.
Are like, yeah, well, it's this or nothing.
Yeah.
Like this, we have no plan B at all.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to give up because he hasn't given up yet.
Right.
I'm not going to. Yeah. Like, why would I give up? Like, I've been through so much with this guy.
Yeah.
Or these guys. Like, I'm not going to give up now.
Right.
They're still in it. Like,
yeah.
We're all still in it now.
That's so good, Austin. Wow. So no plan B.
Yeah.
And surround yourself with men who are resilient, who are tough, who are in it to win it. Yeah.
If it was just individually me the whole time and I didn't have anyone around me, I wouldn't have been able to do it.
Interesting. That's an interesting perspective, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because, so that was a vital part of that. And I feel like that's a vital part of life as well. And surrounding yourself with men who are all in, in their faith and in their pursuit of the assignment of God on their life. Yeah. And so many times we try and do it on our own. And that's such a great point, Austin, is we cannot do life on our own. But yet we try to. Mm-hmm. And it's so hard. And oftentimes we fail because we don't see other people. We think that we're the only one suffering. Yeah. We don't see other guys out there. We're not walking with them as we are getting after it in life. And so we're not even around other guys who can encourage us and help us and push us forward, And so I love what you're saying there. Wow. And so you get through team week, and then there's a point in time, like, what was that last few hours like when you're on the cusp of being finished, but you're not finished yet? What was that like for you?
I got a good adrenaline rush because you're like,
okay.
This is the final event. You're like, it's the last event. You're like, okay, this is it. And then when I got close to finishing the final event, it was like, like you kind of know you're close.
Yeah.
And it's just the best feeling in the world when you're done. You're like, oh my gosh. Like, I don't even care if they select me or not. At least I finished.
Yeah.
You're like, whatever. Like,
right.
Thank God we got
the
finish line.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah, that's so amazing. And so it wasn't just about finishing, like you said. It wasn't about just like accomplishing the actual selection process. It was about the way that the cadre, graded you, as well as the peer reviews, how your teammates graded you, right?
That's a huge factor.
Yeah, yeah. And so how long after you finish that last challenge do you find out if you made it or not?
3 or 4 days.
So you have to wait 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
Wow, that must have been like it just.
It felt like 1,000 years. It's like, oh my gosh.
Really.
Like, oh, come on, let's just hurry this up.
Yeah.
Like, call my number,
It's,
or whatever.
yeah. Wow. And so when they finally called your number, I'm sure it was just like,
It was a great.
were you emotional or how was it?
I was more shocked. I was like, wow, like because it just seems like it's just such a huge thing joining as an 18X, right? You
Yeah.
hear all the stories. You see guys walking around the training area that have already finished selection on different courses.
Yeah.
And before you go, you're like, wow, like I hope I can get there.
Yeah.
And it seems like such a tall tale. You're like, oh, it's like a giant that you have to slay before you can get to just to start the course.
Isn't that amazing?
So it just feels like, man, we've slain that giant. Now we have a bigger giant to slay.
Yeah. That must have been the best bus ride back to the to base,
It was still quiet in there. I think it was also early in the morning. We were all tired. But we were just like, holy cow.
Yeah.
That sound in there. We're just like, wow.
Oh man.
It was great.
That's amazing. And so you get through selection. Do you have recovery time before you start your next phase, or what's that?
We had like 2 months.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Between our court, maybe a month and a half or two.
Okay.
I would say.
All right.
And so recovery time, and you're still doing we got like a week off of PT. I want to say so. It took my body about a week to recover.
Wow.
In reality, probably should have taken a little bit more time off.
Yeah.
But I was 22.
Right.
So I was like, whatever.
Yeah.
So about a week off of really training. I try to go to the gym with my buddy. Like we got back on a Thursday. I try to go like on Saturday or something like that. And we went in and we did like a couple pull-ups each, and we're like, this was a mistake. And we just went right home. But I remember, just cramping real bad, like in my bed all day. And I was just laying in my bed for like about 5 or 6 days, just kind of recovering.
Yeah.
Taking it easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we haven't gotten into the details of the weights of your pack and the loads you were carrying during team week, but it's the weight of that and the impact of that on your body is just remarkable. It really is. And so great job. And so you're getting ready for next phase. And after selection, then they begin to identify like what will your role be to train for, like what would be your role on a special forces team. Mm-hmm. And then that way you can begin to train specifically for that role. Right.
So they assign you a role at the end of selection.
Okay.
They give you a job that you're going to be training up for on your team. And then you kind of start doing not specialized training, but you go to, after selection, it was like basic leader course, and you kind of like focus on your MOS, your
Mm-hmm.
job.
Yeah.
So they have you teach classes. So you learn how to teach classes to the group and stuff like that. So for me being a weapons guy, like I was teaching like a machine gun class to the group.
Mm-hmm.
And then for like all the other jobs, we teach like a job specific group. So they kind of started getting you prepped for like learning your specific job.
Yeah. Were you excited about the fact that they made you a weapons specialist?
Yes, they give you a wish list, so you get to choose you get to rank the jobs that you want in order, and they try to help you out.
Okay.
You want like one of your top two.
Okay.
Depending on the manning and all that. So
right.
The weapons was my number one.
Okay.
So I was excited.
Yeah.
And I had some really good buddies of mine. They got weapons as well. Like we all decided that that's what we wanted to do.
Okay.
So we all kind of did it together. So that was exciting because I was like, oh cool, I got some real good buddies in my class.
Yeah. Wow. And so at that point then you start the training, you go through your basic leadership training, and then you go into, is that when the Q course starts? Is that called the Q course?
Yeah. If you are an 18 X-ray and you are not an E5, like a sergeant yet,
okay,
then you have to go to basic leader course. And then after that, then that's how the Q course started for 18 X-rays.
Oh, okay.
If you're already an NCO and you've already been to basic leaders course, then you start with your MOS training.
Okay.
Whatever. They are always changing around.
Right. Okay.
What the course starts with. But.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite stories about your leadership through that training process. And I'll never forget, we were so excited that you made it through selection, obviously, and just completely relieved. As a parent, you feel like you're just kind of holding your breath, and you just wish you could be a fly on the wall and see what was going on in your son's life or daughter's life, depending, but we were just kind of on pins and needles waiting. We were so excited when we were like, oh my word, he did it. He made it through selection. And then it was like, okay, now he's getting into the actual real training now. And there's still it's still all like to be determined because you have to pass every course you're going to go through.
Yep.
And we find out, oh, he's going to be a Bravo or a weapons specialist. And that's exactly what he wanted. So we're excited about that. And then that course starts, and I get a phone call. I think it was that first night of the course or the second night of the course.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that phone call because you were like, I think it must have been like the second night.
Yep.
Because you were like, I was expecting you to be like, hey, this is amazing, but I get the call and it's like, Dad, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to pass this course. And it was like a call of like, you were just full of doubt.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. I don't know enough. The other guys in this course all know what they're doing, and I feel like I don't. Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about what you're feeling and processing when you called me that time?
Yeah, I think once again it was like a comparison thing. Comparison is a thief of joy.
Yeah, yeah.
I show up to the course, and I didn't have very much experience with guns. We went shooting every once in a while, like growing up, but not very often. And I'd never owned my own gun.
Yeah.
And I show up in this course, and it's all these guys talking about all the ARs that they built and all their personal stuff, and they knew all the terminology for all the stuff we were learning. And I was like, man, this is all like foreign language to me. And just a lot of those guys had those technical skills of like working with guns. And I was like, I've never even like taken apart, like I took apart a weapon in infantry training. That was the first time. I remember like taking apart all these different, machine guns and foreign guns and all that. And it was just, it felt like a very steep, I had to go up a very steep hill to kind of just be on the same level as the guys in my course.
Yeah.
It's like 99% of the guys in my course.
Yeah.
And I know a couple other guys felt the same way that I did. But we all ended up doing pretty well for ourselves.
Yeah.
But I just remember that feeling. It was like, man, I don't know how this is going to work out.
Right.
And I was like, but I'm going to work really hard to make sure that I do not fail this course. But I was like, man, this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough one.
It was really good to see because I remember our conversation. We basically talked about the fact that your first obstacle was going to be just getting familiar with the terminology. And so take a couple weeks, work extra hard, figure out the terminology. What do these words, what do they mean? And you may not even know the context of the word specifically because you haven't applied the word yet to anything, but at least get familiar with the terminology. And then also just reminding you that, hey, a clean slate's better than a slate that needs to be erased and redone. And you were coming on board, especially when you went to the range of not having learned bad habits yet, where a lot of guys had bad habits that they'd learned and they had to relearn the whole thing, which is actually harder. Yep. And so you were in a position to do well when it came to those kinds of challenges. But I just remember the way you took the coaching and the way you received it, and then the way you just kind of completely shifted your perspective and you went into it. And you crushed it. You really, really ended up doing well in the course, graduated high in your class. And I want you to tell the story about the other challenge during Bravo course where you called us and we were like, we hardly slept that night. We were like wondering if you were going to make it. We're praying for you. Tell us a little bit about that story.
It was just a test where you get to disassemble different weapons at a certain time. That's pretty hard time standard.
Yeah.
But we get practice with them and all that. And I was disassembling a 50 cal machine gun, and the extractor cut my thumb pretty good. I still have a scar on my thumb from it. But that kind of immobilized my thumb, and they didn't have any Band-Aids or anything. So I went to the bathroom and
no first aid kit.
Yeah, I was like, what the heck? So I stuffed a glove with a paper towel over my thumb. But that kind of made my hand immobilized.
Yeah.
So it was real hard, and that was the first weapon of the day.
Right.
So wow. There's 10 of them. So I was like, man. So that really made it tough for the rest of the day to kind of use those fine motor skills to use my thumb. I was like, oh man. So I ended up not passing that one that day, but they give you a retest.
Yeah.
So the next day was a retest, and I was at the ER till like 2 or 3 because I was like, this definitely needs stitches or something, and they didn't see me. And
Yeah, you're there at 3 a.m, right? And you're like, I got to get up and get back to back to
The test
testing.
started at 7 the next morning.
Yeah.
So I was like, what? So eventually I just left the ER. I was like, whatever. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And I just remembered I didn't sleep that night. I was just like kind of like getting mentally ready. I was like, okay, like I know what I have to do. And I ended up actually doing well the next day and passing that. That was like because if you don't pass that one, then you either recycle the course, restart it, or you're done. Like you're just done with it. They kind of send you to a review board, and you're either done or you recycle.
Yeah. Wow. I know we were like reaching out to everyone we knew. Pray for Austin.
Yeah.
It was like we were so nervous on our end, and I remember getting that phone call when you were like, "Hey, I passed," and we were like, "Oh, thank you, Lord."
I felt the same way. I was like, thank God.
Yeah, that was pretty remarkable. Just the ability to go the next day with your finger all still kind of like untreated essentially, and be able to get back in there and do well. And it was the times were short times that you had to be able to do certain parts of this, the test. And I was like, man, so much pressure, all that pressure. And so but you got through that.
Yep.
You end up passing that phase, and then you go on. So after your Bravo course, you go on. What's the next phase after that?
It's like learning small unit tactics out in the woods. So that's good because that teaches you basically leadership skills, and how to lead in the tactical environment and just in general.
Yeah.
Coming as like a young guy, I think there was one guy who was younger than me in my class, one or two, if I remember correctly. But just coming as a young guy with like really still not a lot of military experience compared to a lot of the other guys who were in the course. That was just a very good experience for me because you're getting put in leadership positions and you're like, okay, well, I'm leading these guys who have more experience than me, but now like I got to make my own decisions. I'm not going to like cower away and be like, oh, like I wonder if this is the right decision. Like, what are they going to think if I make this decision? So really just working through that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, nope. When in charge, be in charge. All right, I'm in charge. Okay, cool. Like let's get rolling.
Yeah.
Kind of deal.
Yeah.
Like, not really worrying about what other people think when you're in charge.
Right.
Just kind of taking charge and doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
So that's what really that phase. That's one of the highlights of that. That taught me a lot more than that. But this is one of the, and it's just a tough phase.
Yeah.
It's 6 weeks long, and it's tough.
Yeah.
You're like out in the woods. It's summer in North Carolina. When I went. And just out in the woods, just kind of just suffering with the boys.
Yeah. Yeah. So that element of being one of the younger guys, that was a big part of that challenge and what did you feel like that there was a point in time where you won over the hearts of the guys that you were working with, or was it just something to where you just kind of had to keep going forward and every day prove yourself? And how was that? I'm sure you have to prove yourself every day no matter what, but did you ever feel like at a certain point that you had won the respect of the guys and that you could then just walk in the confidence of who you were and how you were leading?
I think for me, my approach was whatever I lack in skill or knowledge, I'm gonna replace that with this working harder than every single other person, or being like a team player to everyone else. Like, okay, like sure, I'll carry this extra ammo on this training. Like, this kind of like as a younger guy, I think that's very important. Like, okay, well, this guy's more experienced than me, but like in the lack of experience on my part, I'm gonna replace that with hard work.
Yeah, that's so good.
Hard every single day, like trying to outwork everyone else.
Yeah,
which was tough because there's some real hard workers.
Right.
Everyone's a hard worker.
Yeah.
At that phase.
Right. And then also the ability to serve others. I love that. We just did an episode on servant leadership, and that will win the hearts of men, and that will make you a trustworthy man. And I feel like that's huge when you're a younger guy on a team, because they can't trust you always to know exactly what to do because of the lack of experience and skills. But if they know that you're going to always be there for them, then that covers a multitude of faults and flaws.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
And also just proving yourself to know what you're expected to know.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Like you might not know everything,
mm-hmm.
but you should know this, like
right.
X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So like if you don't know this, but you're also like, you can't just be a hard worker,
right?
Like all the time. Like, and I've learned that. Like, for me, I think working in construction, like doing that for a little time before I joined the military, like it taught me how to just be a hard worker. But then transitioning is like, okay, well, there's also, you can't just be a hard worker.
Right. Yeah.
There's also skills that you have to know in
Yeah.
life, and whatever job you're in,
Mm-hmm.
like you have to know at least the baseline skills.
Yeah. That's really good, Austin. Wow. So you get through that phase, and then what's next after that?
Then you have your final culminating exercise, and it's 4 weeks long, and then that's like your final event where it brings everything together, and you kind of just do a long exercise.
Wow.
It's a ton of fun. It's
Yeah.
a good time.
Yeah. That's amazing. And so you're still under pressure to perform. You're still really trying to apply new things that you've learned and really walk them out individually, but even more so with a team.
Yep.
And you're getting opportunities to lead, at different points in time. And wow, okay.
And it's just like I said, you're expected to know more.
Yeah.
So every phase you're expected to know a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
How?
be tough.
Yeah. Did the sense of pressure ever diminish during that last 4 weeks, or was it always that pressure was always on you?
It was always on.
Yeah.
It was all, and you get more comfortable. Like, I think when you first start something, the pressure can be a little higher.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, like you get in your rhythm, and you're like, okay, this is what it's like. This is what to expect while we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pressure kind of it goes away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, okay, like we're in a flow now.
Right.
This is just what we do. This is
right.
what we're doing.
Yeah. And that's what I refer to as your capacity is growing.
Yes.
You have a capacity. And it's that same way when you take on a new job, when you take on a new relationship, a new commitment, your capacity grows within those things to handle more. Right. And so the pressure you had when you had your first child as a father, lots of pressure and lots of like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And then, you grow in your capacity to handle being a father, and then you have a second child, and it's like there's another stretching, but every time you're getting stretched and your capacity is growing, and there's still the pressure, but yet you're getting more and more used to handling the pressure.
It's like I just heard a quote. It's like the tasks don't get easier; you just get better at handling them.
Yeah.
It's like the task might keep piling up, but you just keep getting better at handling the task at hand.
Yeah.
That pressure.
That's good. Yeah. That's really good. Excellent. And so then comes the day when you realize that, man, we're wrapping this up, and you go through your last part of that 4-week phase, and you get to the end.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
Oh, that was incredible.
Yeah.
I'll never forget that night where you kind of get told like, hey, you just have passed the Q course. Like,
yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. You're like, oh wow, like this was just started as like a little dream, whatever it was, 2.5 years before that.
Yeah.
And now it's a reality.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow, like thank you God that this is finally over.
Yeah.
But you also, like in the back of my mind, at least, I don't know for everyone, I was like, okay, well, I just finished just the baseline of what everyone knows of the organization that I'm going to. Like everyone has done this.
Right.
So this is just the baseline stuff.
Right.
I really gotta like step it up. And like that's like when the not the real work, but it was like there's still a lot more work to be done.
Yeah.
Because everyone has the same skills that I have. Not that everyone's a little bit different.
Sure.
But everyone has the baseline knowledge that I have.
Right.
Of the Q course.
So you enjoy the accomplishment for a little bit, but you don't rest on your laurels, and you realize, okay, wow, I've actually made it, and I've become a Green Beret.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember we flew out and we were able to go to your graduation on that one. It was an amazing time, and what an honor to have been able to celebrate with you and your other fellow graduates, and meet the other Green Berets who some of them had been instructors and that type of thing. And it was just an amazing time. And, I there's so much more that we could talk about. And after that, you have different parts of your training that you went through as well. But being active duty, we don't want to go into too many more details, but I feel like that it's been amazing to hear that part of your story. And if we could really kind of dial down for the listener some of the key points that you learned in that process of, like, what does it take to help be a man who is a resilient man, a man who's going to go the distance. Some of the things that I've heard you talk about is having a desire to train. I feel like you were training the whole time. You were training before you even went to MEPS, at home. We were going on rucks. I remember we were going on rucks and getting miles in with a weight on your back. You were working out in the garage with your buddies. I remember our garage gym during COVID was like, we really fixed it up.
That was nice.
And you were in there really just trying to get stronger and prepare. And so men understand that no matter what phase of life you're in, you need to be men who train.
Yeah.
And this is not just a physical training, but it's a body, soul, and spirit. And so always working to become healthier, to become stronger, to be prepared is very important. And I love the quote that says that in a conflict, we don't rise to the level of our expectation, but rather we fall to the level of our training. And it's so true. Oftentimes we expect that when things get tough, oh, we'll just do fine because I'm tough, or because of an expectation or a hope that we have. But it really, if you're not training, you're not going to do well. And so let's be men who are in our faith, that we're in the Word, that we're training by reading the Word, by connecting with God in our prayer times, and staying disciplined in our faith and applying our faith. Physically, we've got to train physically as well to be men who can be physically capable no matter what season of life you're in. Emotionally as well, it's important that we're doing things that keep us grounded emotionally, that keep us healthy at a soul level. And that would include relationships, study, reading, doing things that help our minds grow, right? Making the decisions to do hard things is part of our will, training our will and keeping our will strong and healthy. So body, soul, and spirit training. That's what I hear from you as part of that conversation. And that's all really a mindset piece as well that says, I'm going into something that's going to require everything I've got. And if I'm not ready, then I'm not going to do well. And I feel like that one of the things that's really interesting is that when you're in that type of a context, the military context, it's very clear what's in front of you, right? You know exactly what's coming up, and you know what's going to be required of you. And so you don't know how you're going to do necessarily, but you have an idea and you can prepare for it. Whereas in life, a lot of times guys don't have that clarity.
Yeah.
They're like, well, one day I'll be a husband, one day I'll be a father, but it's kind of out there, or one day I'll be in business. And so there's not this such clarity in life sometimes as there might be in the context of the military. And so their mindset is one of, I'll just do it later, or I'll put it off, or it's not that important. But the reality is that the assignment of God, no matter what season of life you're in, you could be 16 years old or you can be 80 years old. God's assignment is on your life, and we need to be prepared to do what he's called us to do.
Yeah.
And so how can we train for that? How can we have a mindset that right now there's things in front of me that I need to be ready for, and that I need to be training for, and that I need to be looking forward to doing? And so let's be men who are always on assignment and never really living that passive, apathetic kind of approach to life, to where we're just looking for the easy way out, but understanding that men who live their lives on assignment, we've always got something in front of us. God's always got, we'll have time to rest when we get to eternity. Now is not that time. And so I love that, the training piece, the mindset piece. What else, is there anything else that comes to mind as I'm talking about this that you can leave the listener that would help them to be men who go the long distance?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but I think a huge key is just who you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Like, you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
So just have that core group of guys, whether it be like a Bible study or some guys you work with, whatever it might be, but having that core group of guys that you can, one, be accountable to,
Mm-hmm.
and two, that like push you to be better
Yeah.
every single day.
Yeah.
Like, okay, whatever. Like my buddy, he read his Bible this morning. He woke up early to do his devotions.
Yep.
Okay, I'll wake up early with him and I'll do devotions.
Yep.
Or he worked out this morning. So okay, I'll start waking up earlier and I'll start working out.
Yep.
Or he's been working on his business, his side business, whatever it may be.
Yep.
Having those people in your life to just push you.
Yeah, that's so good. That's really
I
good.
think that's huge.
Yeah, and a lot of guys try and live on their own. We talked about that before, but
Yeah.
we need to be surrounded by men who do challenge us and push us. And so those three things, I think, are what we'll leave the listener with.
Cool.
The training element, the mindset piece of understanding that there's always something in front of us,
Yeah.
and then surrounding yourself with men who are resilient men, who are the men that you want to aspire to be like. I
Yes.
think that's excellent. And so the Word of God encourages us to not grow weary in well-doing, to stick with it, because we will reap the reward when we get to the end, but we have to get there first. And that requires endurance. That requires us to be men who are resilient. And so the things that you're learning, that you learn in this process of going through your military training to actually become a Green Beret, I feel like were foundational in your life to help you be a man of resilience. And so we want to encourage our listeners, be men of resilience. You're a man on assignment. Stick with it. Go the distance. God's going to give you everything you need to do what he's called you to do. God doesn't call us to do something that he doesn't provide for. And so we can trust him to give us everything we need. And then it's our turn then to make the choice to stick with it and to keep going. And as we do that, we will see the world changed around us as we live out the assignment of God on our lives. And so that being said, we're going to wrap up the conversation right there. I want to continue to put in your minds a couple of announcements here. We've got our Trek Northwest coming up, which you can sign up for on our website at mobilizeman.com on the events page. That's August 1st through the 3rd. It's a 3-day backpacking trip up in Mount Hood National Forest. It's going to be a great time. Would love to have you join us on that. We still have a couple slots available for that. And then secondly, we send out weekly dispatches. It's called the Waypoints Dispatch, and it's weekly guidance for life and leadership for men on assignment. And it comes out every Friday, and I just would encourage you to sign up for that. Just something to kind of continue to invest into your life and help you be the man that God called you to be. And you can sign up for that on our website as well on the homepage. Sign up for the Waypoints Dispatch and be encouraged in your life and leadership every week. And outside of that, man, I think we've had a great conversation. It's been an honor to have you with us, Austin. Thank you so much for your time. I sure love you, proud of you, and excited to do more of these podcasts in the future, hopefully. So, yeah, very good. And for all you listeners out there, until next week, stay on the path.